This presentation showcases the dedicated men and women of the Biddeford Police Department and the programs they use to serve and protect our community.
Welcome to this edition of Street Beat. With me today are Public Works Director Guy Casavant and Code Enforcement Officer Robbie Fecteau. We're going to be talking about that dreaded word, snow, and the upcoming winter months. So, Guy, what about snow?
Well, snow is a part of life here in Maine, obviously. We tend to get anywhere about from 60 to 120 inches of it a year. And I would hope that people don't get drawn into complacency by last year's winter, where we got very little and it was a non-eventful winter. But one of the key things about snow, as it applies to the city of Biddeford, is the issue of parking bans that get declared. That becomes a very significant issue in the months of November, December, January, and February into March. We do have a very urbanized area, very congested area, a lot of on-street parking, and parking bans certainly affect that and makes it very difficult at times for people to deal with their vehicles during those months. So one of the key things I want to get out here today in conjunction with the two of you is information about parking bans, what they are, how they work, why they're called, and the issues on how you deal with them. Secondary piece I think is very important for the public to be aware of, especially the downtown population, is there are also requirements in our ordinances relative to the maintenance of sidewalks in our city, and specifically in the downtown area, and we'll talk about it a little more as we get in depth here. There are requirements for the property owners to maintain sidewalks, and that's not citywide in our town. It's in the downtown business district. We'll be talking about that with Robbie and yourself a little further later in the show, but that's also a significant piece of this, and I think Robbie is going to be talking about enforcement actions about moving of snow.
That's correct. Now, years ago, the current parking system that we use for snow removal is called by you. Is that correct, on your word?
Correct. There are two types of parking bans. Getting right into it, there's a snow emergency parking ban, and that's by ordinance is declared by the Public Works Director, which is me, and that is in place when there is a storm coming. Criteria I use to declare those, I obviously am watching forecasts very significantly, looking at not only the forecast of the storm itself, but of what the weather conditions are going to be like after the storm, just as critical as about the storm conditions and also the timing of the storm. So one type of parking ban is a snow emergency parking ban, which is during a storm event declared by the Public Works Director. The other type of parking ban that people face in town are snow removal parking bans. A snow removal parking ban is there is no event happening that night, but we're mobilizing in order to remove snow from streets. And that technically is declared by the chief. You're the only one who has that authority to declare no parking in a non-storm event. You kind of delegate that to me. We inform you, we're going to pick up snow on these streets this night, and we go through the procedures around that. So those are the two types of parking bans that people face in town. and we can get into each a little more in depth on their own.
Okay, describe the mechanics involved in declaring a parking ban. Other than the predictability, let's say, for example, that they're predicting, obviously, a blizzard to be in effect tomorrow. You would gauge that predictability, making a few phone calls, making your parking ban decisions, typically by a certain time of the day.
Correct.
And you get that notice out to the public in a variety of different ways. Let's talk about just that component right now.
Okay. As you say, we follow, at Public Works, we follow the forecast very closely. We have lines that we can call NOAA, weather bureaus, to get more in-depth forecast. And the trigger for us is 3 o'clock in the afternoon on any given day. If there's going to be a snow emergency parking ban that evening, it is always called by 3 p.m. that afternoon. At 3 o'clock, if we have not declared it, there will not be a parking ban that night. Purpose for that being people need time to mobilize, get their things in order on how they're going to adjust to the fact that there's a parking ban. So one of the key things is, if you're ever wondering about a parking ban being in place, you should wait till maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll talk about the contact points here. Make your contacts and see if there is one in effect, and if there is, act accordingly. If there isn't, after 3 p.m. there will not be one declared. Now, once we've made the decision to declare a parking ban, a number of things happen over at Public Works. The first thing that happens is that we, through our mass email system through the police department here, we send out emails to anybody who has registered to receive these emails. On the city website, you can sign up to get an email notification for any number of things, but one of the key things is for parking bans. So if you sign up for that email, once a parking ban is declared, the first thing we do is we trigger that process. Last winter, for instance, I think we had pretty close to 1,000 people that had signed up that were getting these emails. And that's risen dramatically over the years. When we first started using that system, it was down around 300. So it's tripled in how many people have subscribed to that service. So that's the first thing that happens. Second thing that happens is the announcement of the parking ban is placed on the city website. It's right on the front page. You don't have to go click any links or anything. You go to our website, and if there's a parking ban in place, you will see it right there on the front page. And it obviously identifies the day and the times. We try to stay very consistent with the times. As you know, you and I work very closely together about establishing the times, but it is typically from 8 p.m. one night till 7 a.m. the next morning. Always ends at 7 a.m. There are a few rare instances when we change the starting time. Typically that would be like if it's a Friday or Saturday night. For obvious reasons in the downtown area, we may delay it a little bit. So the first step is the email. Second step is the website. After that, what we end up doing is we notify, I think it's 5 different television stations, 6, 8, 13, 7, and 23. We notify public access station. A lot of people watch Channel 3, and they typically run the little banner at the bottom that identifies that for us. We notify, at least 7 or 8 radio stations. So those notifications go out next. And then the final notification is to the various city departments, fire department, city hall, city clerk, city manager, police, but you get it almost immediately. Once we send the emails out, you're notified already. By the time I get around to calling the police station, they've always, dispatch already tell me we already have it posted. And that I think triggers you to put it on your signboard out front. So we get all that in place, and that is usually always done by 3:30ish in the afternoon. So those notifications are out, and then people have the ability to either see your sign, call any city department, a major department, to get notification, or Public Works, and we go from there.
Or they can sign up for the website notification or email notification on the parking ban.
That's the best thing, because you get that instantaneously, and that seems to work. People seem to appreciate that greatly.
Now, I'd like to go into the part is that under state law, we're not even required to declare a parking ban or give people notice. Obviously, we do that because the fewer cars we have to deal with and remove, it helps us out, and plus gives notice to the public. What I'm talking about is under state law, any municipality who is engaged in the act of plowing to clear the streets or a public way can cause removal of that vehicle because it's in the way. What we do is declare a parking emergency, a no parking emergency, and declare a parking ban. And when you go out to plow, the vehicles are not in your way because those attentive to those websites or notifications are not parked on the city street. Now, typically on a first storm, assuming that we get a storm tomorrow, God forbid, but assuming we get a couple inches and you have to declare a parking ban, typically people don't pay that much attention to the fact that the first one's usually the kicker.
Correct.
How many cars are usually in your way? And I know the answer to that one, but I just want to see.
Well, as you know, I think on the first storm, at times we've had over 100 cars that have been towed.
That's usually anywhere from 250 to 325.
As many as it's been as high as that. Because I guess one thing that wasn't mentioned is if you are out parked during a snow emergency parking ban or a snow removal ban, what you expose yourself to is being towed and a fine.
Correct.
That's the implication. And the first storm is typically the worst of the year. No different than driving. Drivers have to get used to driving in the snow again. People have to get attuned to the fact that there's a potential for a parking ban to be in place and to be looking at the notice provisions around that.
Now, when you have a declared emergency and your crews go out and plow the streets, and the vehicles are removed from the roadways by, let's say, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, how much does that reduce your overtime or your plowability of roads when those cars are no longer in your way?
Well, certainly, when the vehicles are removed, we can get through our designated routes a lot quicker, first of all. You're not going around things. It gives you a much better job because we're able to push things back out of the way. And the big savings is actually towards the end of the storm, because you stop and think, if vehicles are parked out there and we're plowing by them, we're leaving a big snowbank literally out almost into the travel way. And then as cars move, we have to go back, try to push that back. If the conditions are wrong, that stuff can freeze. It can cause many, many hours of dealing with ice afterwards that you don't have to deal with if the cars aren't in the way right from the get-go. So it is a significant cost savings. You're also, the other big piece around it is it's the prevention of damages. You know, you can't imagine the experience, for instance, of trying to go down High Street in a big loader in a snowstorm. That's a fairly significant hill, when having vehicles on one side of you and just so much room to go. I mean, it is literally scary, and the potential for damages to both the vehicles that are parked, our plow vehicle, and or property is very significant when you have all these obstacles in the way of this heavy equipment that's moving fairly significant amounts of snow.
Okay, parking bans are all well and good for you for removal of snow on the highways. What do I do if I have an apartment and I have a vehicle that I park usually in front of my house and you declare a parking ban? Where can I park legally without fear of being towed?
Yeah, and that's a good question as it applies to the snow emergency parking bans. When we declare one, it's citywide. So literally, there's no parking allowed on any city street. Now, the city does make available, when there's a declared citywide parking ban, there are 5 city-owned parking lots that vehicles can go into legally. Those are the Foss Street parking lot, the bottom of Foss Street near Maine. That's one of them. The Washington Street parking lot, that's the one right behind the post office. The Community Center parking lot on the Myrtle Street side. And be careful, because at Community Center there are 2 parking lots. The one on the Myrtle Street side is the one that's allowed during a parking ban.
And the Myrtle Street side is the one as you're looking directly at the building, the one to the left.
If you're looking at the building from Alfred Street, it would be the one to the left.
Or the one adjacent to White Star Laundry.
Correct, towards the White Star Laundry side. The Clifford Park parking lot, that's the one up, obviously, at Clifford Park, and the Gas House parking lot, which is the fairly new parking lot that was built just north of the treatment plant on Water Street. Those 5 lots are open to the general public during a snow emergency parking ban. Now, obviously, I'm not sure how many parking spaces are in those lots, but when we declare a parking ban, I drive around and look, and those lots are literally filled up by 5:30 at night. Cars are jammed in there and all that. So if you live in town and don't have off-street parking, you certainly can avail yourself of these parking lots, but be aware they fill up quick. So you really should be trying to make arrangements with neighbors or other private properties around you where you might be able to get permission to park during these events. There are a number of places that do that. You know, you may not have off-street parking, but your neighbor has a big yard. Talk to them, see if you can make a deal that you can get in there in those events. Now, an important piece of that, however, when you're in those parking lots, you have to be out by 7 a.m. the next morning when the parking ban ends. And there's a real purpose for that because we have to get in there and clean those lots out. Obviously, they haven't been plowed all night. Those are critical parking facilities for our commercial area, so we need to get in there. So when you park in one of those lots, you got to be up early in the morning and get your car out by 7 a.m. Same thing if it happens at that point, because those parking lots get closed officially at 7 a.m. and your vehicle needs to be out. If you're not out, again, you're subject to being towed, and I think there may be a fine. I'm not sure about the fine, but you can be towed out of that parking lot in order for slow removal operations.
What happens if I'm the last vehicle and I'm blocked in and the snow is prohibiting me from driving out of there? What circumstances go to help me out?
Well, enforcement of these bans, you know, it's kind of a joint team between your people and my people. The actual enforcement of any parking ban is done through the police department. They have the enforcement abilities, and when we show up at a parking ban lot that needs to be cleared, I believe that your officers, as well as my people, assist people in getting them out in time. You know, it's pretty clear if they've been there all night. It's covered with snow, and there is common sense applied. Having said that, you see a car in there with no snow on it, you know they just pulled in and all that. There's not as much leeway given. So we try to work around people as much as possible. But if your car is there and you're not there trying to get it out, it will get towed. If you're there trying to get it out, we'll work with you, obviously.
And that lot is officially closed until such time as you've had an opportunity to remove the snow from the parking lot.
Correct.
So
obviously there's a timing sequence there because there's 5 lots. We can't be at all of them at the same time.
Right.
So they become reopened on a sequential basis as time permits for us to clear them.
Also, while we're on the topic of parking restrictions, effective on November 1st or the first snowstorm, we have by ordinance you cannot park on any city streets longer than 48 consecutive hours. So there are parking restrictions during the winter months that go into effect. It used to be year-round. You couldn't park on any city streets from midnight until 7 o'clock in the morning. Those restrictions are lifted now, but City Hall parking lot's one of them. You can't park in there overnight. So if anybody parks in the City Hall parking lot, don't do it because you're going to get removed. Now, let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going into from plowing during a regular snowstorm, and you got the non-declared parking emergencies where you're going to be removing. Actually, let's not go quite that far. Now, obviously, you got to clear the sidewalks. Some of them, correct?
Correct.
Now, what hampers your removal of the snow from the sidewalks as a matter of routine? Or what makes it difficult for your plow drivers to go and remove the snow from the sidewalks?
Well, the first thing about the sidewalk operation is that typically doesn't start till very near the end of the storm. And the reason for that is one of the big hurdles is if we're out plowing sidewalks during the storm, what happens is the sidewalk plow would go by, clear the sidewalk, then the street plow goes by and just throws the snow back into the area. So sidewalk plowing operations typically do not start till very near the end of the storm, and that usually goes on well beyond the time that all the trucks and equipment stop for that reason. So one of the big factors about the sidewalk plowing is that our street plowing is burying them, so it delays the start time for the sidewalks. The second big piece around that is people pushing snow out from their yards into the sidewalk areas or into the streets, but typically it's into the sidewalk areas. And that becomes a very big hurdle, because we just get done clearing the sidewalk, somebody pushes their stuff out, and the sidewalk is plugged up again.
Well, okay, let's go down that path just a little bit. Now, people wonder where to put the snow when they're plowing their driveways, and obviously they put it wherever they can, depending on what time sequence of the season we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular methodology you use in the plowing of the sidewalks, and which sidewalks get attention in plowing and which ones don't?
We plow about 40 miles of sidewalk. That's maybe 20%, if that, of the sidewalks in town. So not all the sidewalks get plowed. And that's simply a result of the amount of resources available and literally the sequencing between storms. You know, there are many times we just get near done the 40 miles we have, and there's another storm, so we're back at our priority 1 sidewalks. We have a priority schedule around doing the sidewalks. Priority 1 is the sidewalks going towards leading to the schools. That's our top priority for doing sidewalks. We have certain ones identified, so when the crews go out, the first ones they jump on, especially if it's a school weekday, are those school sidewalks, what we call. The second ones are the downtown commercial area where we get into, and we'll talk in a minute a little bit about the private responsibility of clearing those, because there is such a thing in our ordinances. So it's our commercial area, then it's our main drags leading to critical facilities, and then it's our main collector residential sidewalks. So we have a priority schedule set up. We run 2 sidewalk tractors. You know, we've had 2 sidewalk tractors since the 60s, and that's what we run for routes today. Although there have been numerous developments built with sidewalks added, and that's part of one of the frustrations for a lot of people is, geez, how come you're not doing all our sidewalks? And we simply cannot get to them all. So we do try to do, like I say, schools, businesses, critical facilities, main drags, and collectors for residential areas, in that order.
All right, we got to move things along here a little bit. We're getting...
It's a very in-depth subject.
Yes, I know. We could almost do 2 shows on it. We don't want to miss Robbie's comments either. You know, we're talking about plowing operations. We're talking about post-storm events, and that post-storm event is after the storm is over with and people are out scurrying around with when the plow boys are out doing private driveways and going from one residential property to another for a fee. Robbie's component comes in code enforcement and dealing with people who typically mound up the snow. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. And it actually starts at the beginning of the storm when the private plow drivers are out plowing. We receive complaints from Public Works Department drivers that are out and about that are plowing, and they see private pickup trucks plowing snow across the road, which is a violation of city ordinance. City ordinance establishes that no one can deposit snow upon a public sidewalk or public street, or public land, in fact. They need to retain the snow that falls in their private driveway in their driveway, and they can't push it across the road, can't push it on the sidewalk. It has to, wherever it falls, it has to be taken care of and managed in that way. So if you have a sidewalk in front of your house and Public Works is not responsible for that, then you are required to maintain that area, and you can't throw it into the street, blow it into the street. It has to be managed in a way that is put back onto your property. We receive hundreds of complaints during the winter months for people, whether it's pushing snow from Public Works or someone calling into the police department Typically during the normal business hours, my office will field all those complaints, and after business hours, the police department usually sends somebody out there, and by the time somebody gets out there, the plow truck driver's either gone. So what I would ask the public, if you are calling in a complaint, to try to get a description of the vehicle. Not always easy to get a license plate because a lot of them are snow covered, but if you do get a description of the vehicle, call it in and they'll log it as a complaint, and either myself or my staff or the police department will follow up on it. It's getting better, you know, as we see the property owners snow blowing into the road, we warn them, and then after, if it continues, then they're subject to a fine. Last year I think we issued at least 5 individual summonses for plow truck drivers pushing across the, you know, and it's the same ones every year.
Now, let me ask you this. You know, the driving motorist will obviously attest to this, is that as you're approaching a particular intersection after a storm, visibility is substantially reduced because of snowbanks or deposited snow. There are a couple places, businesses in the in-town area that I'm familiar with, that because of the very small size of the, it's a postage stamp lot, where they have to deposit the snow someplace, and they mound it 20, 30 feet high near the corner. And typically that used to be, I'll cite an example of what I'm talking about, the old phone company garage on the corner of Graham Street Extension and West Street. They used to mound the snow up there, and I think DHS maintains that property now, and I've heard anything about that. You deal with those types of complaints as well, yes?
Yes, that's correct. And
even though it's on private property, because I mound my
site
snow.
distances are an issue. It's no different than like when a shrubbery grows. There are certain requirements in the ordinance that you need to have site distance. And those typically don't get handled during the storm. Those will be 2 or 3 days out upon complaint. So my office does manage and screen those complaints as well.
Now, you also follow up on complaints regarding downtown sidewalks not being cleared or free from ice and snow?
Yes. The downtown area, as the Director of Public Works has mentioned, it's the responsibility of the individual business that abuts the sidewalk. So if you own a storefront that is 20 feet in width, then you are responsible for maintaining that 20 feet. Every year we get complaints that businesses haven't maintained the front of their sidewalk, so I send my guys out, and they, I think this year's approach is going to be a friendly reminder towards, as we get closer to snow. I mean, last year was October 31st. We had our first snowstorm, but go out there and send the guys out and let them know that they are responsible, give them a copy of the ordinance, and let's hope that solves some of the issues.
So you're planning on starting that within the next few days. Now, is it the person running the business that's responsible or the property owner?
It says here, the owner of any building or parcel, land abutting any public sidewalk in the downtown business area shall be responsible for the removal of any snow and or ice which accumulates upon the public sidewalk. The downtown business area shall include the following streets and portions thereof. And if anybody wants to see the list of those streets, you can go in Chapter 62 under Streets, Sidewalks, Other Public Ways, under Article 1, Section 62.1, Removal, Ice, and Snow Responsibility. So it clearly says in the ordinance that the owner of any building or parcel.
And what we've been doing for a number of years now, we have this flyer that we put out, and through HOB and DDC, we get this distributed before the winter starts, which has that information on it, where the areas are, and how it all works.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that's a little confusing around this is the fact that, as Robbie just said, property owners are responsible. Well, guess what? The city owns a number of properties in this area. So we, as the city, being a property owner, have to clear some of these sidewalk areas, like in front of City Hall, in front of the mini parks, any property owner. So what we do at Public Works is we actually send our sidewalk tractors down, Now, just stop and think of it. It makes no sense for us to plow in front of City Hall, and then when we get to the next property, jump off and go around. So when we do it, our tractors go right down the whole length of the street. Now, and we always tell people, and it's in our flyer, we do that because we're there anyway and we have to do it, but that does not relieve that given property owner of that responsibility. But it's just through efficiency and practicality, it makes no sense to avoid it, so we just send them wherever they fit, they go through. But that doesn't relieve you as a private property owner. If we haven't been there for any reason, it's still your responsibility. And there are a couple areas where we don't fit with our tractors. For instance, along what used to be the Courier building, there's tree wells there with timbers around them, and we don't fit between the building and the tree well, so we don't do that section. But guess what? That property owner is still responsible to do that section. So there's that piece of it that is a little confusing, but the informational flyer we put out and that gets distributed really talks about that and explains what you can do. And what we do to help the property owners on the de-icing aspect, because that's their responsibility as well. Any resident actually, but business owners can go up to Public Works and get a sand salt mixture. We make that available, 5-gallon bucket a day you can pick up for free if you're a property owner in town. So you can come up there, get that. I would suggest you don't wait for the day of the storm or the day after, because you can only get one 5-gallon bucket per day. So, you know, now, once we put it out, now would be the time you stock up. So when you have plenty when the time comes.
Okay, moving right along, we're dealing with snowbanks and the removal of the snowbanks for widening the streets. Is that why you remove the snowbanks, other than downtown to improve access to businesses? You remove typically in front of schools, in front of churches, in front of places where people typically park? Is that the determination that?
Correct. We at post-storm we get into our snow removal operations, and that's where the snow removal parking bans come in. And again, we have a priority set up around that, and the criteria is trying to widen out for parking and for access to different properties for different reasons. Could be commercial, could be because it's a critical facility, any of those different types of situations. So we have our priorities, that criteria that drive our priorities, and that's where we begin our snow removal. Now, much like the sidewalk issue, a lot of times we get going down our list of priorities, we get another snow event, so guess what? We're back at the top to priority one. So snow removal parking bans get declared, again, looking at forecast, making sure it's not going to snow, looking ahead, and then we attack our priority system. Typically we start in the downtown area, then we go to the critical routes heading towards schools, critical intersections, and major thoroughfares. Essentially that is our priority setup. Now the difference in getting the word out on snow removal parking bans, your snow removal parking bans, again, we send the emails out, so if you're signed up, you'll get that. It's on our website. What we don't do is call the television stations and radio stations. And the reason for that is it becomes too cumbersome for them to announce it, because as you've seen in the past, it's not citywide, and the snow emergency one is citywide, so it's easy. They say no parking in Biddeford. When it's snow removal, we have a list of streets. And that's just too cumbersome for them to start reciting streets. They don't want to post it. So it's not on TV, regular TV, and it's not on the radios. However, it is on our public access station. So you get notified through emails, through website, through public access, or by calling police station or Public Works Department. The other way to I know if there's a snow removal parking ban and what streets are affected is those streets get posted, physically posted the morning of the snow removal. You will see these yellow signs out which says snow removal area, no parking, tow zone. Snow removal always starts at 8 p.m. and goes till 7 a.m. the next morning, and the date gets written in here. So if a given street is no parking for snow removal, it's posted like this, and we put one of these up probably every 50, 75 feet along the road to make sure it's clearly visible that this has been declared. Now, you can park on any street that isn't posted when we have a snow removal parking ban. Again, these are very segmented areas, not citywide. So, you know, for instance, Alfred Street might be posted for snow removal, but Mount Vernon, Washington, Birch may not, so you just get onto a street that isn't posted for snow removal at that point.
Now, typically, people will notice that when snowbanks are present and people park their vehicles there, they will park a little bit away from the snowbank, which creates a traffic hazard for those approaching or coming around the vehicle. Typically, if you look at where a snowband is today and you mark the pavement, you would notice that from the curb to where the edge of that vehicle is about anywhere from 3 to 4 feet away from the curb where it is today. That's how narrow that street becomes. So I alert the motoring public is that use a little common sense. If a car's already parked on the side of the street, don't park directly opposite to it, effectively narrowing the width of the lane to about 5 or 6 feet so traffic can't even pass to begin with. Vehicles parked on both sides of the street cause a weaving action, which increases the likelihood of an accident. If you can avoid the street to park on, if it's too narrow, avoid it. Typically what you guys do at our direction is post certain streets because they are too narrow to allow the passage of traffic in a safe way until the yellow signs can go up and you remove them for snow removal. Actually, you don't have to put a yellow sign if the yellow sign is already posted.
Correct. And that situation gets aggravated by back-to-back storms, obviously. You know, when you have a storm every other day for a week, 2 weeks, that situation becomes very critical, as you're aware.
Now, your plow operators, what experiences do they have in a negative way when the motorist approaches them or passes them to create a hazard? What can the motoring public be attentive to?
Well, you know, the motoring public should try to stay away from plow vehicles, and they typically don't. They'll either come right up on us or come right next to us. You know, it's a big piece of equipment. It's throwing snow, which is very heavy. It's got wing blades on it. It takes a lot of room. So a lot of times people don't respect that aspect of it, and it causes some issues. For instance, one of the main issues is mailboxes when you're out in the rural area. And we hit a number of them. A lot of times damage to a mailbox is not because we hit it, because the snow hit it. But we do hit them as well. But I would venture to say in the vast majority of cases, when we've hit a mailbox, it's because our plow operator, there was another vehicle coming towards him. And he had to shift over to the right because that vehicle was either too close to the center or wasn't moving over, and that puts his wing well into the range of hitting mailboxes. So other vehicles should stay away as much as possible from a plow vehicle. I would almost suggest, and there's no legal basis for it, if you're going down the road, you see a plow coming at you, you should treat it much like you would a fire truck, an ambulance, or a police car. Pull over and just stop for a second, let him go by, and then proceed. Now, there's no legal requirement to do that, but certainly from a common sense standpoint and practical standpoint, that's really what you should do.
Then the person will say, if I pull over, then I'll get stuck and I can't move. So can cause a problem. Yeah. All right, our time is pretty well up to conclusion here. Do you have any final parting words, Guy?
Well, just communication. This issue of parking bans, if you have any doubt at all, give a call after 3 p.m. You'll get the correct information. If the office is closed, voicemail will answer and tell you if there's a parking ban in place. Come call police station. There's always somebody here. Those two places, find out, because it's unbelievable how many times we get a call, somebody's been told, and you get the same, they didn't know there was a parking ban.
Now, the parking ban notice, I didn't mean to interrupt you here, but it's on public access. Is it on the website itself?
City website.
It's on the website,
Yep.
saying parking ban in effect tonight. So
Yes.
all they have to do is go to biddefordmaine.org, which brings up the city's website,
Right on the front
and it's
page.
right on the front page, right?
And they can sign up for emails, and they would get that.
Okay, which is under your website or the city's website?
City's website. Right on the front page, you can sign up for email notifications.
Is it there right now? Today?
I believe it is. If you go to email subscription, and then you can, come November 1st, our IT guy will actually put it right on the front page. Click here to sign up for snowban emails. But you can do it year-round by going to the email subscription side.
Why wouldn't they be on there now?
Typically, the winter season doesn't start till November 1st, so.
Well, they advertise for
typically
snowmobiles in July, so.
Yeah.
The real estate. It's expensive real
I'm
estate.
told that real estate on the front page is very, very expensive, very
It's-
critical, so he manages it
I see. Okay.
delicately.
I understood. Robbie, any parting words?
Yes. As the snow starts flying, the complaints will start coming in. Pay attention. If you can get a vehicle, make, color, license plate, that'd be great. Call the Biddeford Police Department, log the complaint, 282-5127, and we'll follow up on it and try to get them rectified.
And obviously, if you put out your trash too early and it snows on top of it, your snow plows will run into trash, and
It
causes problems.
Either sidewalk plows or street plows, but we typically do not, I've been Public Works Director for 20-some odd years. I think we've canceled snow removal, I think it's 4 times in those 20 years, maybe 5.
canceled?
Canceled trash removal.
Oh, trash removal. Okay.
Because of a snow event.
Because of a snow
We
event.
almost always still pick up. It creates so many issues canceling at the last minute that we almost always still pick up. But because of real bad conditions, I think we've canceled trash removal 4 or 5 times in the last 22 years. So you can almost count your trash trucks will be out there picking it up even though it's snowing.
Okay, well, that's about wraps up our time. So the important things to remember is pay attention to the weather, know where you're going to be parking during these declared snow emergencies, go to the city's website, register to get instant notification of a parking ban, and drive carefully when the snow hits and driving conditions are such that you can't do so very safely. Now, as a side note, we have in our lobby at the police station a drug box. If you have any unwanted prescription medication that you want to dispose of, don't flush it down your toilet or don't dispose of it through normal trash. Come anonymously if you want. It doesn't matter. There's a drug box in the lobby. It's open. We're open 24/7. I would suggest that you remove the prescription label and open the drug box and place the unwanted materials into the drug box for proper disposal. Just as a reminder for those of you who don't want drugs. Thank you very much, Guy. Robbie,
Thank you.
for this edition of Street Beat. I'm Roger Beaupre. Thank you for watching.